Hello and welcome to our Lakeside Chat. We are David Wofford and Katie Noonan, co-chairs of the Rotary Nature Center Friends. And we're so happy that you can join us tonight.
As we begin our program, it is important for us to acknowledge that we are on stolen land, that Lake Merritt is part of Ohlone territory. We hear now from Corina Gould, spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn and co-founder of Segurate Land Trust.
Good afternoon, relatives. My name is Corina Gould. I am the spokesperson for the Confederated Villages of LaShawn. We are here today at what most folks think of as Lake Merritt. We are in the territory of Huichin. Huichin is actually a territory that encompasses 6 Bay Area cities: Oakland, Berkeley, Alameda, Emeryville, Albany, and Piedmont. And so this is a place that my ancestors have been since the beginning of time. And this was a place of abundance. I'm so happy that people from all walks of life that now come into our territory can enjoy this beautiful place that my ancestors have enjoyed since the beginning of time. My relationship to the land that I have been born to, raising my children and grandchildren here, has been to tell the story, the truth of what happened on this land before other people came here. I'm hoping that as we begin to learn these lessons of fires in California, the pandemic that's happening, that human beings come back to living in reciprocity with the earth.
Welcome again, everyone. Tonight we celebrate birds, Lake Merritt's iconic wildlife. We begin by honoring local artist Adrian Cotter, who designed the street banners for the 150th anniversary of the Wildlife Refuge celebration in 2020. Adrian will explain his design. Adrian?
It was hard to choose because there are a lot of amazing birds that come to this lake. I felt that I really needed to represent the white pelican because we have Hank who lives here year-round, and just coming over here I saw his lady friends, or her lady friends, coming to visit her from other parts. Also our beloved, hated Canada goose, which everybody knows and some people love and some people hate. And then of course the Oakland bird, the BlackCrown night heron, which is one of my favorites. And the double-crested cormorant, who is also a bird here who's year-round and used to nest on the lake, though I don't know if they did this year. I think they found a better spot on the Bay Bridge again after the reconstruction. So those are birds that we find here sort of year-round, and then the birds here down at the bottom are more temporary visitors, I guess. This is the eared grebe, and we usually have up to 4 species of grebe that come to the lake. The eared was sort of like one of my early favorites coming to the lake because they're adorable, fluffy, cute balls of feathers. And then the Ruddy Duck, which is a wintering bird here as well. And I pictured this one sleeping just to give a different pose for these birds. And then the American coot. Everyone likes to say coot, and they're a very silly bird. They make the funniest squeaky noises that you could imagine. This would be one of the greater or lesser scout, which is another wintering bird, who often likes to come down here by the Rotary Nature Center. But one of my most favorite birds ever is the belted kingfisher. There's usually a couple on the lake, kind of in the winter as well, and they're just a very charismatic bird. They have a lovely headdress on, and it's rare that you can see them actually catching a fish, but it is kind of cool when you do. So I was just trying to select birds that I thought were representative and had had sort of some meaning to the lake. Probably two notable ones I left off, or one notable one I left off, is this snowy egrets and a great egret. The two also white birds that patrol the edge of the lake. I left off this bird here. He was deciding that he wants to be part of this interview. I know, I'm sorry I left you off. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I left you out. You don't have to get that upset.
How about blue heron?
Wow, thank you, Adrian. Those banners are wonderful, and everyone loves to see them around the lake. I hope they can stay there for a very long time more. So now we're going to begin our program and introduce our special speaker, Clay Anderson. Before we turn it over to him, however, we're going to play for you a piece to give some context to the Lake Merritt Wildlife Refuge called Stewards of the Wildlife Refuge.
Clay and I are in a very special place here, the connection between Lake Merritt and San Francisco Bay, known as the Lake Merritt Channel. Long ago, it was much wider and shallower than it is today, fringed by marsh plants and mudflats. But some things remain the same. Lake Merritt is in the background behind Clay and me here, and if we walk forwards toward the bay, we will soon encounter the 7th Street Flood Control Station. Here, water from the bay is rushing into the lake, pushed by high tides. And here, we can see the tide gates themselves, 18 feet tall and 12 feet wide, each weighing approximately 8.5 tons, letting the water into the lake. Tidal flows are captured by recorders in the pump station, receiving a signal from sensors at the Lake Merritt Boating Center dock. There are 2 high tides and 2 low tides per day in this part of the world, seen by the up and down lines. Tidal flows can be mapped out over a period of time, and if you do so, it shows the heartbeat of the estuarine ecosystem. The jittery blue line shows the actual water level in the lake over time. And we can see that there are periods in which the tide gates are closed for various reasons. The tidal flows provide vital water, nutrients, oxygen, and organisms for a natural environment in the entire wildlife refuge. In the past year, we have been treated to views of sharks, bat rays, courting in couples, swarms of fish, and the maturation of a tidal marsh. Recently, city consultants proposed a tide gate protocol, tide gate operation protocol that would stop the tides during the daytime for human convenience. No decisions have been made, but an important voice was missing from the discussion. The supervising naturalist of the Lake Merritt Wildlife Refuge, who resided at the Rotary Nature Center and joined with others in a Lake Merritt Water Quality Technical Committee convened by the city to safeguard the environment at the lake. We need to bring this back. In the words of naturalist Linda Watanabe McFerrin in Bay Nature in 2002, it's at the Rotary Nature Center where visitors can discover that in spite of all the changes, Lake Merritt continues to be a functioning estuarine habitat, a small but significant piece of the largest estuarine system on the Pacific coast. Yes, thank you so much, Adrian, and thanks for everybody who contributed to the foregoing. I think we have a special guest at this moment. Am I right? Dan, are you here?
Yes, thank you for inviting me, and it's actually thrilled to be here this evening. I love everything that that the Nature Center does. And and it's good to see a good turnout here on Zoom. So I want to just acknowledge something that I think most everybody here knows, if not everybody, is that the black-crowned night heron is and has been for the past, I guess, 3 years or so, 2.5, 3 years, the official bird of the city of Oakland. And it's not surprising given how prevalent that night heron is, black-crowned night heron is in our city and has been for many years, for decades, really. And it came about, just very briefly, a group of elementary school students with the support of the local Audubon Society, approached me a few years back and said, "Hey, we should have official bird of Oakland." A lot of other cities did, and we did not. And so they did some research, and they said, "We think the black-crowned night heron should be that bird." And I looked into that, and I think they were absolutely right. And it's not, you hear the word heron, and you think of a bigger bird, and you think of you have a certain picture in your mind. And as you know, the black-crowned night heron is a smaller and much different looking bird than a typical quote unquote heron. But it really is an Oakland bird, and it's very exciting to have it as our official bird of Oakland. And it hangs out around Lake Merritt, but not just around Lake Merritt, other places as well. And so I'd like to give a virtual toast to the official bird for the city of Oakland, the black-crowned night heron. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you for helping us get that bird acknowledged. And it was really great. And we're going to hear more about this in the program as well as Clay leads his talks. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody. We're going to turn it over to Clay in just a minute. Clay was awarded the Bay Nature's Local Hero Award in 2021 for his inspirational work as youth coordinator and program manager. He does artwork as well and teaches people artwork, as well as being a incredible birder and master birder, and as to so many talents. We're really so pleased to have him join us tonight. So Clay, are you ready to take us away on a bird walk?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, great. We're so pleased. Thank you.
All right. So just briefly, just a little bit about me so people know a little bit of my background. I'm a lifetime naturalist. I've been this way since I was a little kid. And they always are asking, where's Clay's out in the woods? Where's Clay's at the beach? Where's Clay's out playing with bugs, snakes, all that stuff. So I've been this way my whole life, and finally figured out a way to make it work for me. I keep many tropical fish, and went into a tropical fish store one day and talking to the person that was selling me the fish, and realized I knew more about the fish than he did. And a light bulb went off, and I realized, hey, I can make a little money. So stayed in nature stuff my whole life, off and on, and finally landed a job with Golden Gate Audubon. And that's my main title, is the youth program manager at Golden Gate Audubon. I've been there about 7 years. This picture is a representation of that. We take kids out, and our whole focus is to get kids out in the space. We call it saturated learning, where they're learning in the space and realizing that nature is a good place to be. That is the main focus of our program, so that kids learn that these natural places, these local parks, these wild spaces are good for them, are things that they can relate to, and places that they can go for peace and what we call recreation, of course, and healing. A lot of the kids, we focus on Title I schools only, and we work with those kids that in most need, and we get them out into those parks so that they can realize that nature is a healing force that they can use in their life. So we talk all kinds of stuff to them, but the whole upshot is that. So yeah, as an educator, I've been doing that for well over 10 years, well over a decade. Other things about me, one of my first gigs in the nature field was working with a group called Love Life, and I did my very first brochure. And so you can see some of the artwork there, and it's just a reflection of me and what I did and all the fun we had. So that was right out of college, and this piece was done probably back in 1989, somewhere like that. So since then, I've done plenty of artwork for other nature interests. There's a graphite piece to the right and Adobe piece to the left. So spanning, I guess I'm one of those that span before computers and after computers. I was in an art class in college, and they took us into a room and they said, this is the future of art. And they showed us the first little Mac. You remember the first Mac that was made? It was this little box. And we all started laughing. We thought it was a joke. Well, now you can't do art without a computer anymore. So I like to show that contrast. And this is an amazing piece I found that I did back when I first got out of college and started working for state parks. And I was stationed at Big Basin State Park. And recently, about 4 years ago, I went back to Big Basin, and they were still using the sign. I did this sign back in 80, I want to say 80, probably 1990. Yeah, probably 1990, 1989. And they were still using the sign. So I was just like, wow, let me get a shot of that. That's 35 years ago. It's probably gone now because of the fire. There was a recent, of course, everybody knows about the Big Basin fire. And so this I'm going to go back and see if I can find it again. But yeah, 35 years they've been using that sign. I was proud of that. And recently, more recent stuff, of course, I've been doing a lot of chalk art with our organization. This piece was done down lower left there, was done for one of our board members. And that piece is about 8 by 9 feet. Up to the right is one of our worksheets. You can go onto the website and Golden Gate Audubon and dig up these worksheets for kids. You can print them out. I wanted to make them 100% accessible so kids can get a hold of them, cut them out, draw on them, do whatever they want, and learn a little bit about nature. So those worksheets are free to everyone if you want to get them. They're on, and they're also representative of our eco-ed program, which we work with the kids with. This one is on birds. The other ones are on the other 3 areas, which is pollution and garbage. Another one on invertebrates, and then another one was it animals? Yeah, animals. And then another one on what's the other thing? Plants. Yeah, native plants. So we really focus on native plants and trying to get the word out about native plants. And then last, this was our most recent piece I did for our first and ever Berkeley Bird Festival. And hopefully we can do this, Dan, in Oakland and get a bird festival going. But we did this up at the camp. This is a UC campus. And if you know about the breeding pair of falcons up on the campanile there, this represents them. I did this piece, took me forever, but it was fun doing it. And we had a great first Berkeley Bird Festival. We also had people come up and do their own chalk art after I got done with this piece. We had about 20 artists that came in and did chalk art. Lots and lots of fun. And you can see some of the photos up on the website. So that's the last. Oh, and then of course there's nature journaling. I teach a nature journaling class that's year round, and it's focused on Lake Merritt. And we want to go out, and it's an open enrollment. Anybody can enroll anytime. It runs from from August up until July. So we take a break in the summer for September. So take a break for July and August, and then we continue. And we want to focus on the seasons at Lake Merritt and how things change at Lake Merritt, and recording in our nature journals what's going on at Lake Merritt, sharing and developing our skills in writing and drawing. So if you're interested in that, we have that open on the website. You can get into the nature journaling course and join us. We have a lot of fun in our nature journaling class. Meets once a month, again, for the whole year. And there's a field trip as well as a lecture. So let's go at it. I think we got our first video coming up. So this has been part of the West Coast Flyway, part of the San Francisco Bay system. It's originally a slough, or some would say lagoon, which has been altered to simulate a lake. But the birds have never forgotten, and they've come here for years and years, using the lake as a backwater for rest, to regenerate their energy supplies and eat and get ready for their trip back north to breed. So it's critical that these kind of places exist. And Lake Merritt is also known as the oldest wildlife refuge in the United States. Yeah, and you can see that the buoys out there kind of demark a protected area, but technically the entire lake is a wildlife refuge. And so that means that none of the migratory birds here, or any other birds here, can be harmed or hunted or harassed in any way. So Lake Merritt has always been a hub for a lot of the migratory birds that come, and for birds in general. So we get a wide variety of waterfowl and shorebirds and other birds coming to the lake on a regular basis, and makes it the perfect interaction, or a perfect interaction, between people and wildlife. Again, we get a wide variety of migrants that come in here during the winter. Usually starts in October and runs all the way into March. And so some of the birds we get here are migrating is right in front of us. That's a good pair right there, where we have a lesser scaup down here and a nice canvasback duck. And so these are winter migrants that only are here during the year, but one of the few places where you can see this kind of a duck up close. Generally, these birds are hunted by man, and so they're very skittish, but when they come to the lake, they know they're not going to be hunted, and so they kind of drop their guard a little and allow people to see them closer, especially when there's food involved. But they're diving ducks. They're not your typical, what we call dabbling ducks. So we got lesser scaup, 2 pair of male lesser scaup, and then we've got a female canvasback over here. So these birds spend most of their life on water. They don't come to land unless it's an absolute emergency. And so they spend more of their time out in the middle of the lake. So seeing them up this close is a treat. Lesser scaups are a little bit smaller than their cousin, the greater scaup, but they're diving ducks. In other words, they take their whole body underwater to get their food, whereas dabbling ducks don't do that. These guys eat the mussels that they find and the clams that they find at the bottom. And then we've got a, I think that's either a western gull or it's got a western gull. It's probably a hybrid gull sitting there. But in the foreground is our star of the story, which is our city bird. This is the black-crowned night heron. And these guys don't spend a lot of time in water. They're on the edge of the water or in a marsh of some sort. And they're looking for fish and crabs and things like that. This particular heron tends to be crepuscular or nocturnal. So they are out during the evenings hunting, or early morning is when you'll see them in action. But right now they're just kind of just sitting and waiting out the day. He's got a very long neck, but you can't see it because he's got it doubled up. But these are fishermen and they eat lots of fish. But these birds are here year-round mostly, and this is an immature bird. This is a juvenile from last year. Hasn't gone into its adult plumage yet. Oh, and we got a nice group of birds coming in. And this is perfect. Whoa.
Oh, this group right here?
Yeah, this group right here.
They're just on cue, huh?
On cue, yeah, this is great. So we've got a bunch of little ruddy ducks coming in. These are another type of diving duck that are here seasonally. You can't find individuals year-round, but mostly the large numbers come in the winter. They come out to the coast because all the inland lakes are frozen, and they're coming in to breed. They also migrate up from south too. But they're coming in towards us, so they can get to this water here, this fresh water coming out of this storm drain here. And they're really skittish. You can see them kind of looking and not really wanting to come in too close. You can see the white cheek, which denotes a male, and the ruddy colored cheek is a female. And these are one of our smallest ducks in the United States. And you can see some of them carry their tail up, some of them carry it down, but they use that tail as a rudder underwater. And when the males go into breeding towards April, May, I believe, their bill turns sky blue. Bright sky blue bill on such a duck. Pretty cool. But those are the ruddy ducks. Yep. They're not hunted very much because they're their small size and they're relatively oily. But the canvasback is this female here is swimming away. Canvasbacks are hunted big time because they're a larger bird, they're more meaty, and they taste really good. They eat a lot of tubers, and it probably affects the flesh in some kind of way. It's the largest gull you'll find on the bay in the lake, and they're here year-round. They're not really a migratory species. We see them here most of the year. Cormorants are also kind of here year-round. They do breed here on occasion. We have a tree, we'll go over and take a look at that later, but they do breed here, and right now they're kind of off of it, so they're not breeding right now. They didn't breed last year, I don't believe. So we'll see what's going on there. And so snowy egret kind of is interesting because they're probably one of the major birds that caused Audubon to come into existence, because they were hunted around the turn of the century. Back before 1900, everybody used the real material. There was no such thing as plastic. And so if you saw leather, it was real leather. If you saw feathers, they were real feathers. And they usually came off a bird like that. When the breeding, they have these beautiful, what they call egrets, which come off the birds, and they are very attractive. And so they were, donned all the women's clothing, and they were wiping these birds out. So, that's the first segment. If anybody has any questions on that,
I came up earlier. How long have the falcons been living there? I went to go Bears. But how long have the falcons been living in that tower there on the campus?
That's a good question. I believe they've been there for about, I don't know, just inside 10 years, I believe. That's when I started hearing about it. So, but they could have been there longer. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the audience might have the exact answer. But the last few years, they've gotten a lot of attention because of the camera, that high-def camera, which is showing every detail of their life. And you get to see all of this action of breeding and raising these chicks. And they've got names. I'm forgetting the names now, but somebody can post it in the chat. But yeah, we wanted to honor that for the first Berkeley Bird Festival. It was really a fun time.
Wendy has a question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Clay, and everybody who's putting this on. But my question is about, I think it's the female ruddy duck. What I noticed was a really smooth line between the front of the face and the bill. Is that a distinguishing feature, often the shape of the bill?
No, most of the diving ducks, well, I'd say a majority of the diving ducks have that kind of a sloping bill face, that interaction. There's a name for it, but that point where the bill goes over, becomes the forehead. If you look at canvasbacks, they have the same thing. The thing with the ruddy duck is the size, and on the female, she doesn't get the white. She gets a line through her cheek as opposed to just a white cheek, and her bill stays a ruddy color, so it doesn't turn blue in the breeding season. And for ducks, this is a very important thing because females usually end up raising the chicks by themselves. The males have nothing to do with it, so she's sitting on a nest, and the predator comes, she's got to look like nothing, right? So they don't have the bright colors because of the function. If you've got a male who wants to be altruistic and try to, attack the predator, he's got these bright colors. So of course the predator is going to be attracted to those bright colors. The duck is not going to go to the nest, so the predator is distracted away from the nest. We know that majority of these ducks spend their time up in central Canada, some of them in north central United States, Nebraska. These areas are what we call the prairie potholes. And those prairie potholes are precious. We know about the tar sands, right? And the stuff that's happening with the tar sands has cut out a lot of land for breeding birds and some of those ducks. So they're very tenuous, and we want to protect those potholes and those open prairies in central Canada, because these ducks need it they nest right on the ground next to potholes.
That's what I wondered.
Water bodies, and so they're very vulnerable.
This is it's such an important point. This is really interesting. I think we want to get going and go out on the lake again, and let's take another look at the lake.
Thank you, Kendra. This location, we're looking at the islands, and the islands were fabricated starting in 1915. This first island was built from the dredgings from the bottom of the lake. So it was actually created to actually give people a feeling of, I can go to an island and have a good time and that kind of stuff, but it actually slowly evolved into a bird haven, and so the birds had a place to rest, and that's why they kind of had the ramps there, so the birds can get up, and for them to people to haul their boats up. And these subsequent islands were built out in about 1920, right around the early 20s. Same kind of a process of dredges being backfilled in, and they really do serve a purpose for these water birds having a place where they can rest, because we've hardscaped most of this lake, and that's something that I think should change, but it doesn't give shorebirds or aquatic birds some place to haul out and feel comfortable. So I think that these islands are really essential for the refuge. But you can see in the background on one of the islands all those white birds out there, and that's the American pelican, or used to be called the American pelican, now is the white pelican. And these guys are a little bit bigger than your brown pelican. They're unique in that they prefer fresh water, but they will tolerate the brackish water and salt water to a point. And they're not diving birds, but they're here. You have one bird that's here year-round that was part of the old rescue or rehabilitation process that we had here at the lake, and he or she has been a mascot for quite a few years, having the pelicans come in to see him or her yearly. And so as this lake has changed, the white pelicans now have doubled their numbers. It's gone way up, and it's really good to see the white pelicans using this place regularly now for haul out and for resting. And they are a shallow water bird. You can see them all up and down the bay or the coast inland. They don't prefer the ocean. They prefer the fresh water, whereas the brown pelican is the opposite. We can just hear that rattle, and that's a kingfisher, and he's actually, there he goes. Whoa.
Where is he?
It's just a sound. You can't really see him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you probably got the sound. But they're here, and all these are indications of a healthy environment. I mean, Lake Merritt is never going to be 100% clean because of the influence of humans, but it's gonna have it's been improved by Measure DD, and so when we got Measure DD in, that really made some big changes, and we took out the weirs, which cut back on the restriction of flow, and so now the lake can operate more so as what it's supposed to be, which is a slough or a lagoon, which is influenced by tide. And once you get that back, then you're going to see the flora and fauna change, and we're going to get different birds. We used to get the golden eye here on a regular basis. that number has gone way down because of the flow and the influence of the tide. Changed the biotic community, and so now we don't get the goldeneye as much anymore. But that's a good thing. Some of the other birds, like we talked about the canvasback, mallard ducks are here year-round. We got the ruddy duck, and we also get piebill grebes that increase their numbers in the wintertime here because the babies are born, and so this is where they kind of congregate. We also get bufflehead, which we saw over there earlier, another really small diving duck to come in. American widgeon come in high numbers. And we also get our scaup, and scaup are an amazing bird in and of themselves. We get good numbers of scaup to come in. Eared grebes, horned grebes, our western grebe and Clark's grebe, they're all coming in. And if we're lucky, you may be able to see one of the redneck grebes down in the slough, in the channel. So there's quite a host of birds that come into Lake Merritt for the winter, and we're lucky that it is a refuge for us to be able to have these birds come here. You know, if it wasn't a refuge, I can imagine it wouldn't look like this at all. We wouldn't have the variety of birds coming in here that we do. So it's really a fortunate thing that it became the oldest wildlife refuge in the United States, so that we would have this host of diversity. And this is a birding hotspot, so it's amazing to have it in such close proximity to so much human activity. And so we've got over here, just off the tip of the island, these big white birds. And we talked about the snowy earlier, but now we've got the great egret, its large cousin. And they're here year-round again. The sacaniforms don't really migrate, but they do like to come in here during the winter to get all the foods, a lot of the foods that are here, a lot of the baby fish, etc. We have another cousin of the herons and egrets, which is the little green egret, and it's usually on the island, but you got to really be looking to find that bird. That's a beautiful bird, but only on occasion do we get it here. Yeah. We also get a host of mergansers, such as the hooded merganser, which is a lovely bird, smaller merganser, redneck merganser, and our common merganser. So we get all three of those mergansers coming in, which is amazing. So I wish I could show you all of them. I'm feeling like I need to. But anyway, yeah. So those are some of the winter birds that come in, and they're here again from October, starting in October and running all the way around through March and April. And then it changes, and then all the residents are still here. You can still come to see birds in the summer. It just doesn't, you won't see all the large flocks of diving birds and shorebirds that we usually get. You could call the Lake Merritt a backwater because it actually is a quiet place for birds to come in that have been flying for a couple thousand miles. They need some place to sleep and rest and get their energy back up again. And some of them continue further south down the coast. In other words, this is the spot for them. So they stayed here in the bay for the rest of the winter season. All right. So there we go. Maybe we can answer just one or two questions while it's still fresh. Somebody asked about the Muscovy, which are, of course, yeah, that was Kendra again. And those are actually dumps, as I mentioned in the chat.
So Clay, somebody asked about how the black-crowned night herons are doing, and she thought they were not doing as well this year as in previous years. Do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, the numbers have dropped because they now found a new rookery, and so of course the numbers are going to be down because they have to learn a new pattern. But who knows how they're going to go up again. Black-crowned night herons have always been in Oakland in number, all in the Bay Area. So I'm not worried about them disappearing, but they are definitely challenged with this new pattern that they have to develop with the new rookery they've created.
Well, I got a couple on this section, and I'll just give you all of them. It's just you can take it like that.
We got time.
Brown and white pelican, shallow versus dippers versus divers, shallow versus ocean. So are we to take from that dippers all prefer shallow water as opposed to divers who are more comfortable in the ocean?
Exactly. That's one of the reasons for that kind of feeding pattern. The divers can dive into that deep water without worrying about breaking their necks. And those shallow water dippers, the food is right there below the surface. And this is something that really we like to emphasize, that we need to start protecting these shallow water areas where there's mud and marsh and places that we don't like to go because we can't walk in it. These places are pivotal for protecting migratory birds, migratory fish, and millions of insect species and millions of plant species that live an amphibious life. These are transition zones, and these marshes are also act as sponges and borders or absorbers for climate change. So these marshes are very important to be protected. They play so many different roles in life cycles and in our own lives, as much as we don't know it. But we've destroyed 90% of that stuff, and that's one of the reasons why we've almost lost our Ridgway's rail, which is an endangered species, because we've destroyed 90% of our marsh habitat. In other words, we saw shallow water as someplace that was useless. And so we paved it over, hardscaped it, and not realizing that there are hundreds of different types of fish and plants and insects and birds that use these shallow water areas as nurseries and brooding places for forever. And they're adapted to that, and they're still around. But when you lose 90% of it, then you know all the ones that are really important, like salt marsh harvest mouse. These guys are all endangered only because we've destroyed their home. No other reason.
Thank you, Clay. We should maybe we could take another look at another walk by the lake. We're getting a couple questions. We can continue after. We have 5 wonderful videos, and so it might be really, you might answer some of the questions, and really great to get out there on the lake again.
So here's a ruddy duck. We should get this.
Which guy?
This little guy right here with the white face.
Okay. Oh, I got it.
Yeah, get that guy. That's a stiff tail, and it's one of the littlest diving ducks we have, migrants that come here. They're here now, and they'll be here until March. And then in March, he grows a blue bill and takes off. His bill is sky blue, and then they head up to the breeding grounds. So that's called a ruddy duck, and this is a male, a non-breeding male, and you can see that tail. They use it like a rudder. Exactly. Yeah. And then you can compare him right with that red-headed bird, the canvasback, right next to him, and you can see the size difference. Look how small he is at about 13, 14 ounces, and look how big the canvasback is at about 1.5 pounds. And one is totally undesirable in terms of hunting because it has so little meat on it and it's oily. And the other one is highly desired for hunting because they have so much meat on them and they're oily. But canvasback and ruddy duck, really good contrast. Both migrants here for the winter time in the reserve here in the refuge, and really good to see them. But these birds don't come in close like this generally because they like to dive, and they dive for their food, so they like deeper water. And so we don't see them this close, especially the ruddy duck. Ruddy ducks don't like coming close to people and our antics. So this is really a treat to see this little guy in here. He's about 13 ounces. I don't know, what's 13 ounces? A cup of water or something?
8 ounces, cup of water.
8 ounces, a cup of water, so 2 cups of water. He weighs about 2 cups of water.
Amazing how light birds are.
Yeah. Such an economical design. But I loved what my dad used to say. He says, I want to come back as a duck. And I go, really? A duck? Why do you want to come back as a duck? And he goes, a duck can swim, it can walk and fly. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a good point. And look how she's sleeping, but she's watching. Her eyes are open and she's watching everything. conserving her energy. And mallards are, they are a migratory. People don't think about mallards as migrants, but mallards are migrants. We just live in their kind of their transition zone. So you'll get mallards here year round, but a majority of them will shift and go north, and then come back again in the spring. So yeah, the canvasback is up in Canada and prairie potholes, and they come back down again. And then the Jamaicensis or the Ruddy Duck, it actually spends time in the tropics too. What else we got? We got coots, which are also a migrant. They also migrate in and out from the inland out here to the coast, and you'll get a big number here, which is not a duck at all. Most people think it's a duck, and it's actually a rail. It scared him into the water. He's funny. But yeah, they're a rail, which is a bird that's usually hiding and eating lots of insects in the reeds. But this rail has broken the mold, and it actually lives out in the open. Oh, here we go. And here we go with the golden eye coming in with the white face. Let's get that bird. So this is a immature male, and he's doing a signal, and the other bird behind me coming in is signaling back. See the head go up? That's a signal. I don't know if it's aggression or friendliness or what it is, but you've got two golden eyes there talking to each other and drinking fresh water. They're all coming in to get the water. Really beautiful bird. And this is the male, and the females are kind of brownish color. Again, like most of the ducks, have a different plumage. Whoa. Have a different plumage. And this is another diver, really one of the divers. And we're kind of losing this bird in the lake as it changes its microflora, and the chemistry of the water changes. So the foods that they eat generally are changing. So for some reason, they're not coming into the lake as much anymore. But this is a real treat to get the golden eye. This is great. We don't have to go anywhere. This is fantastic. But look at that head motion. It's really clear.
Now, do they have to raise their head to...
I wonder if that's drinking, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like they're drinking.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing a drink thing.
So there must be like a layer of fresh water that extends out a bit.
Exactly, yeah. So the fresh water rolls over the salt water, because fresh water is less dense than salt water. So it comes on top. So this little drain is pulling them right in, and nobody's feeding anything, so this is perfect.
So back in the day, before we had urbanized this area, where would these birds be going to get their food and drink?
Oh, good question. So yeah, this would be a backwater. This is considered a backwater. To ducks, this is a backwater. This is like the bedroom. So if you're coming down here in the wintertime and you've flown about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles, you want to build up your stores again and get your minerals back, and you want to sleep, So flying is very energy consuming, so these guys have to build their energy back, and then they can wait out the cold times and the frozen times, and then head back up north again now these guys come from prairie potholes also, and up in the central Canada. We have barrels, which we used to have down in the channel, which is a bird that comes out of Alaska.
Which one's that?
Barrow's goldeneye. It's another subspecies. This is the common goldeneye, but then there's also Barrow's goldeneye. So yeah, so these guys are actually this is great. This is perfect. So you got Barrows, you got your canvasback, you got your Ruddy Duck, all migrants, and the mallard, all migrants, and the coot. Coot's also a migrant, although we don't think of it as a migrant, it is. And I was just saying about the coot, it's not a duck, it's actually a rail that has broken the norm. So they don't hide out, they don't disappear, they're not shy. and they also eat lots of vegetable matter. So if you watch coots, they'll dive in. They're not good at diving, but they'll go in. They do their best, and they grab the seaweed and pull it up, and they eat it. So they eat a lot of vegetable matter. All the other more classic rails generally don't. Yeah, this is the piebill, and they call it piebill because the adults have a bill that's black and white, has a white and black banding. But these are immatures. These are young birds. Right now they're feeding, so they're in and out of the water, up and down. Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Perfect. But yeah, immature piebill grebe, one of the smallest grebes we have, and they're gathering here on the lake for the winter time, and you can see quite a large number of them during the winter. So highly piscivorous, mostly fish. They'll eat crabs too if they can get them, but mostly they're after the fish and the immature insects, a lot of the naiads and dragonfly larvae, things like that. Arthropods and fish is their thing. Yeah. Whoop, there's 3 of them right there. Boom. That's cool.
Great shots, Clay. This is just amazing.
Yeah, Rob, great video. That's fantastic. Let me a couple of quick
we got, go ahead.
One is the canvasback. I said it was 1.5 pounds. It's actually 2 pounds. Canvasback is a big diving duck, and that's one of its problems, is that it's big, it's meaty, and all the hunters want them because, again, they're kind of a vegetarian, or lean towards vegetarianism, so their flesh is really mild and tasty, and so lots of meat, lots of mild meat, and hunters just love them. So they're highly regulated wherever they are because the hunters want them. Another thing was on the golden eye, and that head movement turned out that they were drinking in a funny way, but when they go into their breeding phase, they actually use that head movement, exact same head movement, in communicating with the females and also warding off other males. And so they have a whole series of head movements that they use, including the one you saw in their breeding dance. So I just wanted to clear those up. There was another one, but I can't remember it now. But anyway.
That was totally amazing. So we, Rob, Clay, can you stay after 8 o'clock a bit to continue our virtual walk?
Yes. No
awesome. That's awesome. So I'd like to pause just for a few minutes now. I just wanted to ask everyone to give it up for our guest tonight. Clay, this is just an amazing opportunity to get a naturalist view of Lake Merritt, and this has been wonderful. I wanted to thank people who contributed to some of the photography that we've seen tonight, including John Kirkmeyer for the video of the banner. It came from the 150th documentary that you can see on lakemerritt.org. And to the crew of wonderful local bird photographers and videographers. We have Lila, Barum, Lee Orick, Kirsten Furman, John Kirkmeyer, of course, Carol Levinson, Peggy Rem, Stephen Summers, and the contributors to the Birds of the Rotary Nature Center project on iNaturalist. I want to thank all of you people for keeping your eyes on the wildlife in the Wildlife Refuge. It's a great service. And so this has just been wonderful to have you. I'd like to remind everyone that Rotary Nature Center Friends has just become a 501c3 nonprofit. If you like the things that we do, providing lakeside chats and also bringing young people, high school and middle school age kids and younger kids to the lake to do stewardship and to observe nature. Also, we do some virtual classes. Please consider making a donation to the Rotary Nature Center Friends, and we'll be sharing this information with you, so where you can make a donation. And we want to thank the people who have sent in donations already. It's been wonderful to have that security to continue our programs. We'd like to remind everyone that there are stewardship opportunities coming up. On the 11th, Mud Lab will be doing a cleanup at Lake Merritt, meeting at Mud Lab. They do a wonderful job of removing trash, and they're our partners.
Rotary Nature Center Friends will do an Adopt a Spot cleanup day on the 18th. And that will be both at the Nature Center grounds and the Sailboat House Marsh area that we're working in. For the birds, we have an upcoming Golden Gate Audubon bird count. And you can register for that on the Golden Gate Audubon website. There will be one led by Clay in Richmond after the first of the year, which would be a lot of fun. And at Lake Merritt, there will be one on the 19th. And there will be a Lake Merritt birding BioBlitz on the 12th. And finally, we are excited to announce that our first chat of next year will be a talk by Dr. James Carlton called Lake Merritt's Most Famous Animal, the Enigmatic Story, and the 100th anniversary of the, I believe it says, Australian tube worm. So this should be a very good talk too. And so with that, oh, here's the Eventbrite. The Eventbrite is now up and you can sign up. Jim Carlton grew up in Oakland and got his start as a scientist at Lake Merritt, and we'll see some of his original things. Okay, reminding you that we do a number of interpretive services at Lake Merritt outside the Nature Center itself, and would like to thank our partners, Frederick E. Hart Foundation for Educational Opportunity, the Lake Merritt Institute, St. Paul's Episcopal School, the San Francisco Elks Lodge, Oakland Public Works, Youth Employment Partnership, Oakland Unified, Environmental Justice Caucus, Rob Lamone, our wonderful producer, media and videos, and David and I are co-chairs, and we have a number of wonderful board members and volunteers, and we would love to have you join us on any of these ventures that we've been doing. We'll be sending out information. There's some photos of our various things that we do. And also, if KTOP is rebroadcasting these Lakeside Chats on Sundays at 6 p.m. And go to www.oaklandcalifornia.gov and search for KTOP to find out what particular program is coming up on any particular Sunday. And I think that is it. We'll conclude for a couple minutes and we'll get back to Clay. So I'm going to take a look to do another walk, and then we'll have a little more relaxed time for discussion before we do our final walk.
Yeah, so this is the BlackCrown night heron, which is an amazing bird, one of the Sacaniforms or one of the egret heron group. And this is the nocturnal version. That's why they call it night heron. But it has that black cap or black feathering on the crown. It's got its head tucked right now and sleeping, but waiting for the twilight. So they're usually active dawn and dusk and through the night. High predator, eating lots of fish, mice, whatever they can catch that's moving, they'll go for it. But one interesting thing about this is this bird is actually the official bird of Oakland. So BlackCrown night heron is a special bird. It's not a migrant. It lives here year-round, and this is an adult. So this is the adult form. We'll see immature birds here also, but a great bird to see here on the lake, on the first island. This is Lake Merritt's first island. BlackCrown night heron became the state bird or city bird because of a mishap by the post office or one of their contractors. So they wanted to build a multi-level parking garage by the main post office, and they contracted a builder to build the parking garage, and they started cutting down the trees in order to do that. And when they started cutting down the trees, birds started falling out of the trees and hitting the concrete and dying. So that was kind of an alarm that went off, and people were like, why are you doing this? And this is after we looked at it, we realized it was a rookery or a colony for the BlackCrown night heron, along with the snowy egret. And that started a whole campaign around finding a new home for these birds or a new rookery. And to Oakland's credit and to the construction company's credit, they footed the bill to try to relocate the rookery here on the lake. Wasn't successful, but it was a real good effort to make amends. The birds decide, nobody knows why birds choose where they nest, so the birds actually chose other trees nearby to continue the rookery. So the birds are still here and continue to reproduce, but they did lose that area one for the post office and nil for the BlackCrown night heron. And of course that precipitated the awareness of this bird, and also to the popularity went up on this bird, and there was a decision by Golden Gate Audubon to decide to try to take the effort on to make this the city bird. We didn't have a city bird for Oakland, and so this bird just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Park Day School got involved and a couple other schools, and they campaigned and went up to City Hall and showed their drawings and and spoke and stuff, and made it into help make it the city bird. Yeah, that's a bufflehead, and that's our smallest diving duck in the continental U.S. And they are here again, another migrant coming in to spend the winter here from up north, and they will spend the winter here, and then they're gone. They're actually, you can find them here year-round in small numbers. Here's a raptor here. This looks like a Cooper's or a peregrine. Oh, it's a peregrine. Oh, he's coming around. He's coming around behind the dead tree.
Where'd you see him?
He's coming into the dead tree. He's gonna land right there.
Got him.
Woo! That's a peregrine falcon. You can hear him chipping. Hear him?
Yeah.
That's him chipping. That's a peregrine falcon, ultimate predator. Everything. Anything. He's an opportunist, but his main, what falls in his purview generally are ducks and pigeons, things like that are out in the open. Again, this is the fastest flying bird on the planet. So when it hunts, it's moving at a fast pace. It's not going to do well in a tight space. So it's always out in the open. They nest on rocks, generally tend to nest on rocks in open areas. They'll nest on top of a building, a dead tree like that at work, but they're generally on some type of a platform. They prefer, they're not real great nest builders. They won't even build a nest if they don't have to, like the birds on the campanile, right? Those guys don't build a nest at all. They make a little scratch and they lay their eggs. But they need that wide open area because of their way of hunting, their way of moving. High speed, high altitude, and then drop down onto whatever prey item they see. They kill with their feet, so generally they'll bring the feet forward and either knock the bird out of the sky or grab it or hit it in some kind of way. At such a high speed, it just knocks them silly, and then he comes in and does the dirty work with his bill. So that's a great bird. Right in Lake Merritt, we have a peregrine falcon, the ultimate predator, at high level, and just a special bird. Wow, that's great. Not a migrant. It used to be almost extirpated because of DDT, thinning their eggs, along with a bunch of other species, but once we figured out and got DDT out of the system, then they started to come back. So peregrines are so successful that you can find them all over the world. So the scaup are a great bird, and we have large numbers of them. So most people generally will say, oh, well, scaup, we hunt a lot of these birds still. But we have to be careful because, it's easy to think, because you see a large number of them that they're fine, and so we can hunt as many as we want. But there is a tipping point when a species with large numbers is on a decline and won't return back to its numbers. So we don't know what those tipping points are, and that's what happened with the passenger pigeon and also the Carolina parakeet, is that we just thought there was so many of them that we could just continue to hunt them, and we didn't know that at some point that bird is going to start inbreeding, and the numbers are just going to drop and it's going to disappear. So we want to, while we know that there's lots of scaup out there, we also need to continue to keep these types of refuges for them, because these birds come in numbers, and we want to make sure their numbers just stay at a healthy level.
So Clay, these are amazing water birds. I noticed just a while ago you saw a small bird pop by and you said, oh, there's a butterbud.
Yeah.
What was that? And what other birds are coming here that are not on the water?
Yeah, Audubon's warbler. So general term in birding is butterbud for the Audubon's warbler, because they have the yellow coverts over the tail. And they're here in numbers. They're here generally around an individual, but in numbers in the wintertime, we get the yellow rump warbler or Audubon's warbler coming in to spend the winter here on the coast. And they're very adaptable, and they eat all kinds of insects all over. And they're just a special bird to get. Hard to get on camera, but but great to look at when you're looking through binoculars at you want a colorful bird that's easy to see, or when you're getting into warblers, that's a great starter warbler. Yeah, so we got a horned grebe here, which is a really nice bird, another migrant. They are another one of the, like the Piebill grebe, another very aquatic bird. Spend a lot of time at least as much time underwater as they do out of water. Well, they spend most of their life on water, but above water as below. And they are fishermen, so they're going after fish. They're swimming under and catching fish as they swim. And these birds are really unique, and because they dive underwater, all of the feathers on their body are super important in terms of water repellent. So the wet feathers themselves actually create a barrier between their body and the water. And if you imagine a hot body organism and then this cold, frigid 50-degree water, if that bird had a breach in its feathers and the water got to the body, of course they could very easily go into hypothermia. So feathers, all the feathers on birds are important, but for a diving bird like an eared grebe or a horned grebe, they're doubly important because they're aquatic. They're spending time underwater, and these feathers have to repel water in order for them to be able to make their living. They've got a cousin named the ear grebe, which looks similar, and they actually breed here. The ear grebe does. I wish we had an example, but right now we've got the horn, which is nice. Yeah. So the Piebill is.
So this is the Piebill, right?
Yeah, that's the little brown one, yeah. So the Piebill is one of the smallest grebes, and then the hornbill is a little bit bigger. And then eventually we'll get our western grebes coming in, and our Clark's grebe, which will be really nice to see those. I wish they were here now, but we'll be happy with our grebes, because their numbers are low here always. They're never like plentiful like the mallards or the scaup or any of the other birds, but when we get them here, that's really good. And it's a real strong indicator because they are eating the fish. That fish is healthy and they're reproducing, so we know that this water is healthy enough that these wildfowl are reproducing and staying healthy. So very good indicators of the water quality when we see these birds doing well and eating and reproducing. The entire lake is a refuge, so all the birds on the lake are protected. But the boom is there to keep winter boating activity from disturbing the birds. So the birds use the boom as a protector, and they can sit in here for hours on end and rest up while people are out on the lake, still being able to use the lake in the winter time. So that boom is just a reminder to the boat folks that, hey, this is a refuge and we want to protect the birds.
Great. We're getting some good questions. Someone was asking about how the grebes take care of their feathers in that salty water that we now have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So that one is the answer is the uropygial gland. So most of these birds have a oil gland right on the back between their back legs, and that section area of skin produces a lot of oil, which the birds then wipe onto their bill and then wipe onto their feathers, and that's how they condition their feathers to be waterproof. Take away that uropygial gland and you won't have a duck. So very important that they use those oils to preen. And that's why you see these birds with these long necks, because their neck is actually their hand. Their actual arms are full of feathers. So they don't have any fingers. So they got to use their bill to do everything to keep themselves conditioned. So their necks are very flexible, and they use that in order to get that oil off of their back and then wipe onto the feathers.
Clay, we had a question from Peggy about the drought that we're currently in and how that might be affecting the migratory bird numbers and diversity that we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a giant question, right? It's the drought is definitely has its influence, but to try to pinpoint that and say this affected that exactly like that, we don't have the tools to really answer that question. We just know as a living organism on this planet that if you don't have water, life gets rough, right? So for them, it's the same. Now, one cool thing about birds is they can fly. They don't need a ticket. They don't need a plane. So they can just up and move, right? So and that's what they do. When those fires hit, they're up and they move. They go to another spot. They don't breathe that stuff. Clean air is another really good, important thing for birds. And so that's why we use the birds as indicators, right? If you don't see birds around you and you're outside, that's a bad sign. That's a real bad sign. And you want to be able to see birds because birds will tell you, hey, this air is not good. So that's another good point. As they used to say, canary in the coal mine. It was real. They really actually took a canary, put it in a cage, and took it down into the coal mines with them. And when that canary started erping on the little inside that little cage, all them miners started hauling butt up out of there because they knew there was a leak and they were next. So the canary in the coal mine is a real thing. It doesn't happen anymore. They've now got a little computer that goes off now, but it was real at one point. And birds continue to be our indicators. We should always be looking for birds and having birds around us. Yeah,
Clay,
go ahead, David.
you know, I want to say that for me and my family in West Oakland, where we used to live, there weren't any birds until 1989 when I forgot what it was called, the Cypress Freeway fell down tragically in that earthquake. And after it fell, over time, we noticed, me and my neighbors, we would come outside and we had started to see birds back in the neighborhood. And so in our organizing efforts to prevent that freeway from being rebuilt, we were fortified with that knowledge, you know, especially as it relates to the canaries. But I had a question. You mentioned that the birds are eating the fish in Lake Merritt. Here it is. If we were to open those tide gates and allow the water to flow in from the bay more, and if more fish got in, would that necessarily increase the numbers of birds that hung out there, you think?
Well, if there were no tide gates or any dam, that the lake would not be a lake anymore, right? There wouldn't be water there year round. The tide would go out and you'd see a mud flat. And so you get a whole another set of birds coming in there using the slough as it originally was. It was actually a slough, a tidal slough. So the answer to your question is yes and yes, because the mud attracts our peeps, or what we call our sandpipers, and there's lots of them. And if you want to see some peeps and sandpipers, go out to Martin Luther King shoreline, Hayward shoreline. You'll see lots of wonderful peeps, which are great birds. But they would replace a lot of those floating birds that we see, like the ducks. It would just be a change of guard. That's all it would be. We'd still get the ducks when I was in.
It is pretty special to be able to see all those ducks right up close, right in the heart of the city.
We got a burning question. I want to make a comment about. Well, it's part of a welcoming and acknowledgement of Clay. Well, my experience of meeting Clay in this whole process, and the irony for me, because part of what I want to do is help human beings understand the science and nature of the world that we live in, and using Lake Merritt and its wildlife refuge as a process for doing that. And the challenge I have found specifically in that process of engaging Black and brown people has been daunting. And I understand that that's because until the day that they're going to be coming from families and communities where they have jobs and security and safety, they don't really have the kind of time or space to think about and hold these kind of things that we all hold near and dear to us. And so I just wanted to acknowledge, I don't know, the joy of encountering Clay in this process. And then again, back to the irony as we talk about birds and the idea of being an African-American male and talking about and understanding endangered species. Clay, this is a rhetorical question, if you will, if you want to take it that way. Have you ever personally been threatened by a redneck grebe?
Let's have that discussion off air.
All right.
Great.
Wow.
I got to remember that.
It's hard to follow that.
We're in the strait, or the channel, or some people call it the part of the estuary of Lake Merritt. And I just wanted to come over and look for some unique birds that are over here. Like I mentioned before, the redneck grebe is one that comes into the channel here. And also Barrow's goldeneye, which is a beautiful winter migrant that comes into the channel. And now, because they've taken out the weirs, and hopefully they're going to take out more, who knows, the flow here is a lot more regular with the tide, and so you get a lot more cleaning, and the water's a little bit cleaner than it is in the lake, and so it attracts different birds. So I don't see a lot of the migrant. We're kind of early. It looks like the birds are coming in late, but if you want to come to a place that's not on the lake, and you can see a lot of the similar birds as well as some of the different migrants coming into the channel next to Laney College here, that runs through the Laney College property, is a great spot, a great bet for checking out some of the different migrants that come into the lake. This channel is like 1/3 of what it used to be. Before the gold rush, this thing reached all the way over, and this building wouldn't, Laney College, half of Laney College wouldn't even be here. But we're standing on landfill, and this is actually what's left of our Merritt channel. You've got two western gulls there, kind of warning off a third bird. And they'll stay together. Gulls will stay together, I think it's year-round. And they will breed in the early spring to start their chicks. But these guys are year-round residences, and they're actually almost endemic. But they go all the way up to Washington and all across the San Francisco shoreline, the ocean, Pacific shoreline. So beautiful bird though, and very, very intelligent. Gulls are similar to like crows and corvids, jays, crows, ravens, in that they don't migrate, and they actually figure out how to procure food and what they need in the same spot through the seasons. So if you're going to stay in one place, you have to be a problem solver, and so they're able to do that. So these are domestic mallards, and most of the mallards are most of our domestic ducks, or ducks that we use for eggs or meat, come from the mallard, which are these birds just to your right. Most of these guys with the funny colors are just birds that have either escaped or were thrown away, so to speak. So a lot of times we treat ducks just like we do the turtles, and we have them for the Easter time, and then when they get to be a mess and they're pooping all over your apartment and eating all your food, then it's time for them to go. So a lot of people will dump turtles and mallard ducks into the Lake Merritt just to get rid of them, and so you have these different colored birds. Now this one in the middle, this bird, they're both crossbred with native mallard, wild mallard, and domestic. So the bird in the middle is more like of a happy medium between a wild mallard and a domestic mallard. Oh, we got our nice big great egret there. That's a good shot. Yeah, one of the birds again that were having problems with the plumage industry in the turn of the century, and stopped them. National Audubon stopped them, and so now these birds are stable. Is that a log or a tube? Jeez. How the heck did that get past the weir? Well, it's amazing. But yeah, gorgeous bird. That crooked neck is used for stabbing fish. It's an archer, or what do they call them? Another word for fishermen, angler. Yeah, angler. What are the anglers? They need plenty of baby fish and little fish. But they're very slow about it. They like to sit and wait for it to come close to them. The snowy, actually, on the other hand, actually will pursue its food. So the snowy egret has changed the pattern and pursues other fish, while this guy kind of waits for things to swim by. So, and I've seen them stand for hours. I would say hours. I would say as long as I've seen one stand is an hour, which is amazing. I walked and went on my hike, came back, it was the same exact position. So very cryptic birds, very slow in motion, but beautiful, beautiful bird. All right, here we got a western gull come in. He's a really beautiful breeding adult.
Where's that, right here?
Right here, yes, he's digging, eating clams. Oh yeah, she's finding them too. This is a female. You can tell females, they're slighter build. And a lot of times, generally they're smaller than the males. Males have a lot more bulk to them. She has a rounder head. But that's our endemic western gull. And with gulls is a whole different thing. It's a lot more intense because you can't see the differences between gulls so easily. They all have white, and then they have a gray mantle or something like that, very similar. And so you have to start looking at beak shape and like the little red dot on the bill. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's black, sometimes it's a band, sometimes it's not even there. Color, and then combine that with the color of the feet or the legs, so that you know which species you have. Color of the mantle. So this one is charcoal gray. Then you got birds that are like light gray to almost white, different species, but they all kind of look the same. So it's just like, okay, it's a seagull, and that's where you leave it. But gullers, they love it. They love the challenge. But around the lake, it's not too hard. If you can get western gull and figure out what a ring-bill gull is, and then a California gull, you pretty much got it covered. We do get thayers in here and glaucous wing gull, but those are kind of small numbers. Mostly western, ring-bill, California. So those are the three major ones. There's that pair again. So that pair is just kind of ruling that little area over there, and anybody that comes through there, they do a display. And now they're beating up on a tennis ball or something. Yeah, see, he's running. So that's a juvenile western that he's just chased, that gray bird, and he's kind of letting him know, hey, you got to get away from around here. And that's their little victory call or warning call. So there's two pair of gulls there. And they'll breed right out on if you go over to the base of the Bay Bridge, you can see the chicks in the spring. growing up, and they grow up through the summer, and then finally they fledge late summer, and then they're on their own. But they'll still pilfer off mom and dad. They'll follow them around, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch. They look like little spotted puffballs when they're babies. Christmas bird count happens every year on December, and we get to go out with a group, and you can start in early in the morning at 7 in the morning, and it goes until you can't count no more. And so you get people bleary-eyed, and generally pre-COVID, we'd go in at night and have a little food party and talk about how many birds we saw and which species, and then we'd count all that and tally it up, and we'd turn it into the Ornithological Union and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun. It's going back for years and years, centuries, right? Since people have been well, it started with banding ducks. Mm-hmm. The hunters would band the ducks to figure out when and where they would be, right? Because we want to eat them. But it just turned into the whole thing of, well, we don't have to kill them to count them. We can just band them or just watch them and count them wherever they are. And I started the bird banding thing 100 years ago. So yeah, it's just it's a fun time, and anybody can get involved. You find out where your Christmas bird count is all over the United States. Just no price, no nothing, just sign up and get up in the morning, go birding. And then, a lot of the groups, they'll just say, hey, whenever you're ready to peel off, let us know. So yeah,
that has been totally amazing. Thank you. You're really a star. I just enjoyed the program so much. I felt like I was at Lake Merritt. It's so peaceful and so much information to share. I mean, you really are a treasure, and we're so honored to have you come and join us tonight. We're at 8:30, and I'm happy to stay a little longer if you want to take a couple more questions, maybe 5 minutes or so.
No problem.
Okay. And then we'll all have to say goodbye until next time.
or come on a bird walk with Golden Gate Audubon.
Oh, I have. We will send out that information on the post chat. The information about how you can join the Golden Gate Audubon Society bird walks. Yeah, we'll do that. And definitely, Clay, if you want to send additional information to me, I'll send it out to the people in the post. Naomi is reminding us that we should keep our eyes on what's happening at Brooklyn Basin and preserving the marshy shore there. That people are eyeing for a marina. These areas are precious, and everybody's help.
Joy Hartnett asked, what are the names of the birds who use the beak to apply the oil to the feathers? All of the birds, a majority of birds have that uripigio gland, and they use it to condition their feathers, that oil. So most birds will have that. Just so it's not just on certain species, most birds, particularly water birds, because they spend so much time on water. So good question. Somebody was also asking,
what is your most prized sighting?
Oh, at the lake. That's a good one. Well, that peregrine was pretty nice. That was pretty impressive. Redneck grebes, whenever I get to see a redneck grebe in the channel, used to be called San Antonio Creek, but it's now just the channel because hopefully we'll get a new moniker for it as opposed to just the Lake Merritt channel. But yeah, redneck grebe. I'm trying to think of what else. There's been a couple of them, but those are some of the nice ones. When I see the redneck grebe and I see a peregrine like that. Another cool gull that comes into the lake, you don't see them but in ones, and that's the glaucous wing gull, which is a really sweet bird. It's the largest gull on the West Coast, and they do come into the lake to hang out every now and then. Those are nice birds to see. Yeah, there's some. I've had some really good ones. I couldn't pick out one particular. I've seen some really cool stuff at Lake Merritt. So
everybody has a magical sighting at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then once in a while you see the raccoon go out to the island, swim out to the island.
Did you guys catch the question about the great blues and how often they show up? And I missed it.
Okay, so yeah, great blues are always at the lake in small number. You only see one or two. Most of the sacaniforms or herons and egrets, they don't hunt well together except for the snowy. The snowy can handle hunting in a group. All the other sacaniforms are like, hey, this is my area, back off. And so all the other herons and egrets will spread out, and you only see one here, one there, one here, one there. Herons, because of the heavy human activity, we don't get a lot of herons, but we do get them regularly at the lake. So they're there. If you get there early in the morning before the crowds come, there's a good chance of seeing a great blue heron on the lake. Beautiful, fantastic bird, almost 5-6 feet tall.
How much do they weigh, Clay? Those herons?
They're not a heavy bird, actually. They only weigh about I think a pound or two. Not a heavy bird at all, but really lanky and really good at catching fish.
Except for the catching fish part, a lot like me. Clay, this is something I like to ask our featured speakers often, and that is your topic, birds. So when we think about organisms and symbiotic relationships, what if any thoughts or comments do you have about our human organisms and identifications as we have evolved and our relationship with birds?
These organisms have been here for millions of years and have coexisted with all the other species and found a way to make it work. So coexistence in nature is important. Diversity in nature is paramount. You don't have nature without diversity. As we develop this understanding of monocultures, right? And it's great to have these factory farms of realizing that we're losing the integrity of that monoculture, the species of that monoculture, as we farm it and turn into some type of thing that doesn't exist and cannot exist on its own. It has to be continually tended by a human once we domesticate it, and that's not good for our health.
Clay, this might be related, and it's a question that came up and I didn't see. Someone asked why sometimes there are so few birds, or they notice so few birds in a deep woods. You want to comment on that?
Birds are there. They're in the deep woods, but they just aren't being, you can't see them because they're not going to reveal themselves that easily. And a lot of those birds are very cryptic when you get in the deep woods, like, for example, the rufous-sided towhee. If you see it in a bush along the trail, it's a beautiful bird. It pops out. But in deep woods, it has that dark hood with a dark eye, and that's so that it can hide. There's too much danger in the woods. So the birds that live in the woods and head in the forest have dark colors, like the earth, like the tones, like the shadows. And so you think of like an okapi. An okapi is a giraffe. It doesn't have a lot of bright colors on it. It's brownish, has some banding on the legs, but for the most part, it's a dark animal. So animals reflect where they are. And so the birds are there, they're just not as easily seen as if you were in a transition zone in an open bushy area, a desert, a field or grassland area like that. So they're there, they're just not as seen. And if you're in a deep forest that it used to be a tree farm, and we talk about monocultures, when they planted those trees really too close together, people are just dumping them and getting paid for dumping trees in the ground. That's not a forest. That's a monoculture. And so you're not going to get a wide diversity of birds in that area because those trees were planted as a monoculture and there's no diversity in the forest. So in that forest, it's actually a kind of a farm situation that you're in. So you want to see real true forest, go up into the Sierras and walk around in the giant sequoias. You'll see some real true forest. It's amazing. It'll touch your soul.
Well, what a way to end our Lakeside Chat series for the year. This is so inspiring. We probably should bring it to a close in about a couple of minutes. But Clay, can't thank you enough.
Yeah, you can get me at Golden Gate candaceanderson@goldengateaudubon.org, or at my personal email, I'll give that out, naturalart@gmail.com. That's with 2 T's.
Natural art with 2 T's?
With 2
Okay, I hope I got it right. If I don't, I will put it in the...
You got it.
Okay, great. All right. Well,
If you're
again,
advertising, you
thank you so
will
much.
be diluted. Oh, that's another good thing I didn't mention is the garden at Lake Merritt. If you get a chance, anybody gets a chance, go into the garden at Lake Merritt, and you will see some perching birds that you didn't think were there. There's some really good birding in the garden at Lake Merritt. So go check it out, and you'll be wowed. It's really cool, really cool. Every time I go in and lead a group into the garden, we get good birds. We get great birds.
I'm sorry, I haven't, remiss not to have mentioned the fourth Wednesday walk that that Hillary Powers has at 9:30, meeting at the Geodesic Dome. It's a wonderful opportunity every month on the fourth Wednesday. Just a wonderful chance to experience the lake and to get a view of, and she goes into the gardens a lot and sees a lot of those great perching birds. So another really great opportunity.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to get with the Christmas bird count, get on my naturalart@gmail, and I'll coordinate with you so we can go out on the 17th of December, and then on January the 3rd, I believe it is, up in Richmond. I'll lead a section up in Richmond, and then I'll be at Martin Luther King Shoreline on the 17th.
Again, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for coming. This is a wonderful, just really so happy to have this program. And thanks so much.
You know, get outside and enjoy nature, learn from nature. It never lets you down.